First of all, thank you for taking the time to chat with me. Really enjoyed the film, and I really enjoyed both of your work in the past as well.
Thank
So
you.
I think this genre of like B-movie action is having a big renaissance, and I really love that. And I think it's in no small part due to filmmakers like yourself. Why do you think that this is?
I'll answer if Aaron's not going immediately, because I don't think the films that people want to watch are being made by the studios. And I think we're filling a vacuum, a void, which people want to see. People keep complaining about no one going to the movie theaters. If you're making films that are unappealing, you're going to have that problem. And they had that problem in the 50s. They had that problem in the early 60s. They had it in the late 70s, where the studios thought they knew what the audiences wanted, and they were wrong. And it was the young directors, the spikers, the guys that came outside of the system, the rebels, not always the young guys, certainly not in the French case. Those guys, Melville was in his late 40s. You are making films that people want to see. And I think that's why. And by the way, I don't think of our film as a B movie, but certainly that would be why films that were made not from the regular huge sources were becoming popular, were generating enormous audiences. And I really, really appreciate you noticing that, Sean. Thank you.
Do you have anything to add?
Uh, Not really. I live under a rock, so I don't know too much. But I just like making movies. To me, it doesn't feel, it's funny because you make a comparison between theater acting and film acting and all this. I don't know what that means. You just got to be truthful. You go out there, no matter what size of a movie or whatever it is, you just got to go out, be truthful, give it all. If you're laughing, crying, whatever it is, it all means the same stuff. It goes inside of a camera. Maybe some people have more money than other people, and more resources. I think but to do it analog is the way I like to do it. I like everything to be as real as possible, and these movies afford you that opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. And your career has obviously spanned genres, but in recent years, you're kind of starting to like hone in on your status as like an action star. So what stands out to you about like working in the action genre? What do you enjoy about working in that genre?
Well, I mean, I'm just getting older, and I'm lucky to be still walking. So as long as I can throw a punch and drive a car and all that sort of stuff, I feel like I'm lucky. And if somebody's going to hire me and pay me to do that, um, also a few years back, I decided to make movies that I was going to have fun in. That me personally, that when I went to set, I was going to have fun. And that's what I'm making now. I have a blast doing these. I treat them deadly serious,
Mhm.
and they are serious to me. But when I find guys like Jesse to work with who are as passionate as I am, who will give it all with limited resources, that's a good day's work. And I like that. And, sometimes it makes you, not want to go back to the bigger films because you're not given so much freedom.
Yeah, for sure. And this is your second collaboration together. So what do you think is, so fruitful about this collaboration for both of you?
Uh, Jesse. My first collaboration was Chief of Station, which we shot in Budapest, Hungary. And Aaron is a consummate actor. He's very, very good as an actor and very good as a collaborator. But there was one moment when I was sitting in the back of a car with a camera because the cameraman was nervous of being there. Aaron was driving, and we were replicating a scene where a stuntman drove at about 80 miles an hour down a closed circuit through a abandoned aluminum factory from the Cold War. Stuff all over the place, very, very dangerous. And by we started about 65 miles an hour there and driving, and me filming over his shoulder. And by the third take, I think he'd taken it over 100 miles an hour. I'm stuck there, and there was no one else who could film this. But I realized I think that Aaron was seeing how far he could go before I quit, and thought that I was challenging him to keep going faster. But it was one of the scariest experiences of my career as a director shooting. But he was absolutely perfect and did this the same time every time. Now I've been around stunts for 40 years, and that sounds awful. Makes me a lot older than I sound, a lot older than I am. I started when I was 14. So I've seen a precision driver, and I know the science behind that and the practice that has to go into it. And Aaron is one of the very best with action, with physical action. He's so good at it. It's a joy to work with him. I found out something recently about a year ago, and I let Aaron know. I shoot with a trainer called Taron Butler. He runs Taron Tactical Academy. They train John Wick, and they train the guys for Sinners. They train Halle Berry. They train the guys for The Punisher. You know, and I told him I was working with Aaron. He said, wait, and went off and came back with a video. And he showed me footage of Aaron shooting there. And he said, he is the best, speed shooter in Hollywood at the moment, bar none. There's some pro shooters that are faster than him, behind the scenes guys, and Chad Stahelski is one of the top guys, the director. But as far as actors go, there's no one that comes close. He is so disciplined and concise and fast with the gun on these multiple targets. And so I called Aaron. I said, you're at the top of the list over there. And he's like, yeah, and wouldn't say anything about it. But this, when you get Aaron Eckhart, he is so disciplined, and it crosses over into his acting as well. So when you're making an action film, there's no one like him. I mean, physical martial arts stuff, I've worked with some guys that can do that, but Aaron's also a jiu-jitsu guy as well, par excellence. How often do you train jiu-jitsu, Aaron?
Well, I train every day. And so I trained today. Today I'm doing Cali sticks because I'm going to be doing a movie, Cali fighting. So
Oh,
I'm learning
wow.
that now. But I like to fight. I like to fight train. I like, you know, uh, to make it feel real. And that's why shooting and all that sort of stuff, driving, it's important. I think when you're doing the stunts yourself with these movies, you can't rely on stuntman to do it. You have to be in there and doing it yourself. And it gives it saves time, and money, and that's a big deal. And also sometimes you look at the stunt guys and they're great and everything, but you're like, oh, I could do that, so I'm gonna go try that.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
amazing. I'm almost nervous mentioning all of this because I feel that a huge studio is going to see this and snap him up, and I'm not going to be working with him because he is such an untapped reservoir of this skill set, and it is important. And I tell you why it's important, because the acting he does very very well as well, and he's obviously there and committed. But the audiences are so refined now. They watch YouTube videos. They play video games where this stuff is highlighted and explained. They understand. They're connoisseurs of guns and tactics and physical action and martial arts through watching UFC. So they want their heroes on the screen. You can't fake it like Randolph Scott did. You can't fake the gunshot and the guy dies in the next frame. They want to see the tactics and training behind that. And you can't do that by prepping for a week before a shoot. Aaron trains for it and lives it every day. And you get this when you make a movie with him. God, it's fantastic as a director. It's the most amazing thing. We tried to bring that to Thieves Highway. You see a little bit of it in there, certainly with the fight scenes. It's all Aaron. It's him. It's him throwing those punches and being whipped over, a foot of cold water in miserable part of Columbus, Georgia, where the water was, I think, toxic, had some kind of a bug in it. We found out afterwards. And those guys are in there for 8 or 9 hours, slugging it out. Neither one of them wasn't bleeding by the end of it and bruised. And, I think the stuntman was dazed by the end. He didn't know what was up and what was down. And, this is the kind of commitment. And you don't see it very much anymore. I've worked on a lot of big movies. There's a handful of people. Tom Cruise, it's like that. I've done 2 movies with him in the stunt department. Aaron has it. He has that commitment, and man, it's the most fantastic thing to collaborate with. And I think if you watch Thieves, you feel a little bit of that.
Yeah, no, I definitely felt it, especially in that scene you mentioned, the river scene. That was definitely my favorite scene in the film. I thought it was incredible. But
Love to hear that.
so I might be reading a little too deep into this, so feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But looking at your career, you have this history of playing characters who are like lawful but driven to lawlessness. Like you see it in Thieves Highway, you see it in like Olympus Is Falling, you see it in like Harvey Dent. What about this arc of like the lawful character driven to lawfulness by a failing system, do you think interests you?
Well, I think I'll try to put it a different way than that, which is a lawman who wants to abide by the law but is driven to break the law,
Yeah.
and because of a moral code, because the law has deserted him, because the law itself has become corrupt. And there's a very in my, I don't want to get, say anything bad, but I think there's a very fine line between a lawman and a criminal, and a lot of times, and I think that we see that in society today. Um, because it's a violent métier. It's a violent vocation, um, and sometimes when you're fighting for um, what you believe in, you have to go all in on it. And so I like those characters. I like characters that are willing to bet everything on it, or who will do anything to avenge a death, or to and I call it the three C's. I like making movies about corruption, crime, corruption, coercion, and control. Those are the three things I don't like. And when you're playing a lawman or a father or whoever it is, you're usually come up against these three things, and you have to battle them to the death.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that really impressed me about this film is that it's about this issue that, probably doesn't connect with a lot of audiences, but you still make people like really invested in it and care about it. Like it's not like, a basic revenge story where you have like this basic core emotion. Like there's more to it. How did you kind of set about doing that with this issue?
Well, these are universal issues. They're iconic. The idea of somebody's livelihood that's being stolen from them, he who is counting on that money, counting on all of his hard work, paying off for him. This idea that people they themselves cannot take care of themselves if not for theft and thievery, and that gets under a man's skin after a while. Um, so I think any audience can look at this and equate it with their life, something in their life. Oh yeah, somebody stole from me. For example, just taking a guy who's a mechanic and is getting his truck stolen with all his tools in it. People say, well, what's the big deal? You have insurance. Well, it goes deeper than that.
Mhm.
And that's what this movie is about.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have anything to add?
I think a lot of people at the moment feel that the government has sort of let them down in one way or another, and this film deals with that. These are farmers that small farmers, not corporations, people who can't afford to lose what they're losing when they lose cows. Uh, and the truth of the matter is, when Aaron and I did the research on this, these enormous spaces of Oklahoma, Texas, these heartland countries, they have one cattle cop, two cattle cops, a man or a woman. And now these cattle cops are fantastic human beings. They're very eccentric. If you go online, there's lots of footage of them, cowboy hat, and that sometimes they carry a gun, sometimes they don't. But I mean, they have to govern these enormous spaces, and it's almost impossible because the cattle rustling goes on at night. They're whipped out of there, taken to a no brand state and sold. And it leaves the farmers feeling absolutely disillusioned and upset and abandoned. And I think everyone feels that to a degree, in life, that things are happening that they don't have any control over. And the little man is constantly being crushed in favor of corporations and oligarchs and huge name brand, and in the meantime, the mum and pup farms are just being obliterated, destroyed by this awful crime. And so it felt good for me to do this and to scratch back, and to make people aware of what's going on. Maybe in just one small part, maybe it can bring light to something that truly is deplorable, and we've created obviously a fictional movie with that as a background, but it deals with very, very serious consequences.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope that, people see this movie and connect with that message.